Hello, my beautiful mystics. Thank you so much for tuning in and welcome back to part 2 of how to make a tarot card deck. If you haven't watched the first part, maybe jump into that and have a look. And I think we're just going to jump straight into this one and pick up where we left off. So the best thing about making a part 2 in a video is that I can mention all the things that I forgot or needed to include in the first one. So we'll do a bit of a cap off there. And the first video was more about the creative process of designing and the direction and creating the artwork. And this is kind of like the video where everything is now kind of taking shape, taking form, and it's starting to get to that next stage. So there were a couple of points that I missed there. One of the things that would be really beneficial, and it's actually really beneficial for me at the moment, is to get a giant big piece of butcher's paper. You can get that probably from like any craft shop or just anywhere. Like you could buy a roll of it somewhere really cheap. And it's really exciting for me as an artist, or just in general, when I get a big piece of white paper. I think I've always kind of been that way a little bit, because it's exciting that anything could happen here, and it's your imagination. Only you can be the thing that limits that. So what you do, you get a giant big piece of butcher's paper and you stick it onto the wall, and you get a pen and you just write, like scribbling down words. And eventually those words start to create form. So for example, if it was a tarot card that, for example, for me in my deck was animals, I went with a spider, say for the Eight of Pentacles, which is more about diligence and hard work and building something, and patience, which is like, I associate spiders with patience, and that's kind of how I see that card. So I knew that I was going to do like the Eight of Pentacles would be a card dedicated to a spider. So when you start to segment the deck into little bite-sized pieces in that grid design that we looked at in the first video, you'll start to feel a feeling of like which animals or which magical creature you wanted to associate with that card in particular. So that way you're not really repeating too much of the same animal, and like it may have the same deck, but I mean the same kind of theme to it, but you don't want to be using the same animal too much, because it can get a bit repetitive, and you want to associate each animal with its own card or its own kind of archetype, particularly if it's for the designs for the major arcana. Like I would use the goat for the devil card, but I wouldn't use the goat for like the strength card or something, because we know that it doesn't need to be used again. So that's a bit of advice there as well. So you're keeping it different and fresh for everything that you're doing. Also, I would advise you guys to get a folder, whether it's on your iMac or phone or desktop computer or whatever, and jump on the internet. The internet is a great place to start looking for pictures of things that could be connected to your vibe or your artwork, or the theme of the story of your deck. So for me, it was lots of animal photographs. There were lots of visits that I did. I went to the zoo a lot, and I got to see a lot of animals that I could photograph myself, and then I'd later come back and upload those images and put them into a folder. And what I would do in like in my opinion is that you start putting these folders, separating things. So you're dividing these folders into piles, so like animals here, nature here, flowers here, and this is kind of like a really good starting point for you. And then you come back to all of the, the scribble board, which can look so like chaotic, like writing. It doesn't, like, don't worry when you're in the creative mode, don't worry about being like everything's got to be perfect. Like don't even think like that. Like don't worry about how messy or chaotic it can get. Like art and creativity is chaos in its own way. It's containing chaos. So you can get lots and lots of words there, and then those words will start connecting to those images that you've had, and then you can start going back to the grid system and start incorporating those animals to those words. And that's kind of how I did it for each suit. And I think that's a good place to start. If you can't get a butcher's paper, probably the next best thing to do would be to get a giant big whiteboard, like a big whiteboard marker, because what you can do there is you can just scrub the board back to cleaning the slate down and just get your phone and just take a photograph of it on your phone, and that way you've got a reference. So I would say the best advice I can give back in the creative process of doing the artwork is making sure that you have everything backed up. So whether that's on iCloud or that's on a USB stick or a hard drive, I cannot begin to tell you how many times my computer crashed. And at one stage, my computer was crashing that much, I just went and got another computer. I was financially able to do that. And I went into I've got the biggest iMac that you can get. And that really helped me visually. Like, I would really struggle personally for myself working with a laptop. Like, laptops for me are very fiddly, and I don't really like the finger motion of the little square. I prefer kind of using a mouse or a keypad, which is a lot easier for me personally, because I've got big hands. So it's kind of difficult to for me to do that. So yeah, so I would say back up everything that you do, everything, even if it's scribbles, even if it's just an idea, a word, a poem, it could be a sentence. I am constantly writing down little sentences. Like the other day, and this can come out of anywhere. Like when you open up your crown, and if you are spiritual, you'd know this, you are allowing a receptive audience or a receptive receiver on the other side to come through you and allow that messages to translate into the artwork. And so I was meditating a lot. In between every piece of artwork that I did for my deck, I was meditating like a motherfucker. And like when I was, say, for example, working on the Hierophant card, let's have a look closer at the back of the box of my book, of my deck. You'll often find that the archetype that you're working with spiritually will be connected to something that's happening in your life at that time. Yeah. So I was actually having like this real struggle with a religious aspect at the time, I remember, and I was really looking at the Catholic Church. And at the time when I was doing the Hierophant card, there was a massive court case that was happening in Australia about, about a priest, and the use and misuse of religion was actually a really heavy theme. And it was like coincidental that I'd be working on a card at the time that was speaking to me at that time that I was drawing. And you'll find a lot of the, like when you start to really open up your crown and you start to really channel energy and frequencies, you'll find the theme will be correlating to where you are in your life. For example, the Four of Swords, when I was illustrating that, I actually had a burnout. Like you get a burnout, like the matchstick burns out and you've got no energy and you have to just sleep. Like just lay down on the floor and go to sleep like a cat, Sometimes we need to do that. And I talked about that. If you have a burnout and you don't feel like you're up for it today, don't do it. It's not the day for you. So rest was kind of the theme that was happening. A lot of very dark stuff was happening in my house around the time I was doing the Devil card, because I'd done a lot of research into the Devil card. If you go back and have a look at my videos, I did a 2-part series on the Devil card. So there was a lot of like occult energy that was pouring through me at the time that I was channeling this. And this really, this was my story, because I am, I'm an esoteric artist. I make art that looks, that is, using paradigms from spirit or occultism into my artwork. Like this one that I did, it was a print. I'll bring it up really close. This was actually the design that I did, part design that I did for an Empress card, where I was working with the idea of the divine feminine and creativity and nature, and you've got the womb with the baby. This deck never happened, but I went on to do that. And it all started from scribbles. So everything that you do, everything that I do is building on something. Like I did like 5 different versions of the devil card before I actually just went with a white goat with a snake around his neck dripping blood. I just knew, like, until I'm absolutely happy with it and I wake up one morning and I look at it and go, oh yeah, that's it, that's the one, then keep going until you get to that feeling. You know, it's like dating people. Like, you may meet a lot of people, you might go on a lot of dates, but it's that one person that you'll meet and you just know. It's it's hard to explain. Like, if you really know yourself, you'll know, like, you're kind of learning who you are. I don't, like, as an artist and a creator or whatever I am, I don't think art is, like, the life in general is not something that you life in general is something that it's not about finding yourself. It's about creating yourself. Finding your, like, you've got a soul to work with, but that soul has come in to a 360 reality. It's having these experiences. But that's what I was saying with my art, is that things that are happening in your life are going to start manifesting in your art. Yeah, so I hope all of that kind of, you know, stick that in your pipe and smoke it a little bit. So I've often had conversations with friends of mine where it's like, you know, sometimes it's like, if I ever end up really happy, like, what's the point of creating art? Because if I'm happy, what the fuck am I going to do with that? There's no place to go from that. I'm already there. And I think that's, for me personally, I'm always chasing a level of perfection in my work that I know that I will never reach. Like, I'm always striving. This is a Medusa head, or a little bit of a Medusa head that I did in Grey Lead earlier this year. I'm always chasing something that almost doesn't ever exist, but I know it's like a horse chasing a carrot. Like, that's the feeling. I'm always working on it. I'm always wanting to improve myself. I'm always wanting to grow. And that is a metaphor for expansion. So I hope that gave you a little bit of info about me. Okay, back on topic. So yeah, keep everything. You might come back like months, weeks later and look at something and be like, oh yeah, that's why I did that. Okay, and then I can use that for something else. Sometimes an idea will present itself to you while you're creating, and you may not know why or what it means. That's okay. Just keep moving forward, and the reason behind why it presented itself will come back to you later. So that's something to keep in mind. So you could keep something, you know, in the cupboard. I've actually had a book story idea, which I haven't actually told anyone really about this, but when I was, quick tangent off the, you know, off the grid for a second, I wrote the outline of a story about a Native American Indian girl who gets separated from her tribe when I was 9 years old. And I've come back to it in later years to attempt to, you know, revisit the story and rewrite it. And I'm not at that level of writing. So it's every time I come back to it, go, no, not ready yet. No, not ready yet. And I know one day I'll come back to it and I'll go, oh, I'm ready now. I'm at that level of ability where I'm actually going to be able to do these characters justice. And so, yeah, so you may not be at the level that you want to be now, but if you keep working hard and keep pushing and forging on through, you are going to expand your ability as an artist. Like, my artwork, your artwork will expand as you progress. You'll get better. You'll refine those skills, the blending, the shading, the rendering. You'll know what to do. So, yeah. Now, also, I would say that at this stage in this video series, you're coming along and you've been doing the artwork and you're keeping it all documented and you've got the photographs and everything's coming together. I would, at this stage, in my opinion, from my firsthand experience, I would start looking at what kind of design you would like to, like, where is the end game of this going? So start thinking about, like, what kind of box you would like, what kind of guidebook would you like, what kind of format would you like, what kind of font would you like. For me, the font that I chose is a free font which was called Hill House, and this is a very popular this is a very Butterfingers. This is a very popular font for kind of like a gothic kind of trendy vibe, which kind of matched my deck. And it is Hill House, and it is free. There is also American Horror Story, which is also free. They're all unlocked fonts, and they are from this show, American Horror Story. So that font of text really suited my style of artwork. And a lot of season 3 of American Horror Story kind of ended up coming into the theme of my deck a little bit. And also there was the American Horror Story font, which I'll bring up really close, this font here so you can see. That was used at the bottom for the titles as well. Also, start thinking about the order of the cards. So where do you want the Justice card? Where do you want the Strength card? Because in some cases, those cards or some cards are flipped around. So whether it's through the traditional vibe or whatever it is. So I would start to say, if you're into tarot and you are legitimately serious about making a tarot deck, then you would already have some kind of idea about the direction that you would like your story and your book to go. And all of the cards do talk to each other. They all tell each other stories. So it's about storytelling. Look, even to this day, you want to have a piece of artwork in your tarot deck where it's this is pulling me into a story. We've got this shamanistic cat with this kind of Indian headdress, and it's very interesting. This is, all of the cards have stories. And you can go, the more story that you put into the artwork, the more that someone else can get out of it. So we've got the Brother of the Wild and the Knight of Cups, and we've got this wolf howling at the moon, and he's got in his breath, we've got all of these wolves coming out, and it's are they his ancestors or are they his brothers? Is he running with the pack? Is the pack with him in spirit? So start create, here's the 3 of Pentacles. We've got these 3 figures that are looking down at this puppy. It's they're higher than him. They're teaching him something. So we've got this story that kind of starts to create its own little narrative, and then those narratives start interacting with each other, and that's kind of how it starts to take shape. So yeah, thinking about what direction you want it to go. Now, the next stage is scanning your artwork digitally. Okay, so I will say straight up, when it comes to quality takes time. Okay, and also I would say in any situation, and this is not just for a tarot deck, this is for life as well, don't go for the cheapest, easiest option. Okay, that's not going to be the best. In the long term, I would say it might cost you more. You might have to save or borrow money, or maybe get an angel investor, or get someone to help you out, or just work out a way to make it happen. But don't work really hard on your work just to have it just mediocre in the end. So when it comes to scanning, the best advice I can say, for example, is that you've got the artwork, you've drawn it, you're really happy with it, and you may want to pop it into Photoshop and clean it up. You can do that in Photoshop. Yep, probably the best place that most people would be using to do a project like this, or they would also be using a project called InDesign. So if you don't have these programs, you can get a monthly subscription. They are expensive, I won't lie about that. I think for the student pass here in Australia, you're looking at about $79 a month. It can be quite a lot, but I do use that program. I use it a lot more. But if you've got a way, maybe, I believe that the artist will find their way no matter what. So you might have a friend that might be able to let you log into their account. You may have someone who can help you out with that, Don't let money get in the way of your work. If you really want this, you'll figure out a way. I'm crafty. And also, don't rely on other people to teach you and help you all the time. You can jump on the internet. You can jump right here on YouTube like I did, and you can look up tutorials, and they'll teach you how to make something, how to fit something in the lines, how to edit something. And that's how you build your skill set. My skill set with these programs was so basic before, and at the end of my project, my skill set's I'm pretty good. I can do a lot on there now, so I've learned a lot. It's all learning, guys. So this is a learning curve, and some of these things may not work and some of them will, and the only way to figure it out is to just fucking do it. So yeah, so when it comes to scanning your artwork, you really need the artwork to be scanned in a high resolution. So for each card that you want. So I would say don't take a photograph on your phone, don't do that. Because what'll happen, you can edit the image, you can, this is good for taking photos on Instagram or something. You can edit the image, you can, there's lots of adjustments, your contrast and lighting and shadow, but it's not like a 300 DPI scan on a flatbed is going to trump your phone. Trust me. Unless your artwork is like really, really big and you can't get it on a 3D, like on a scanner, then you're going to have to take a photograph. And I would say if you're going to do that and you can't get a scanner, and can you bring the artwork into someone like an office workshop? We have a franchise here in Australia that is very big and they can scan things. Scanning things onto a USB stick, the scanning part of it is not expensive. It's more the printing part that's going to cost you. But you should be keeping a digital copy of all of your work in case something happens to it. And I've had work that's been damaged and I can never get it back again. And you work so hard on something and, you know, it's a real bummer. I could tell you stories or I just cry thinking about it now. So if you can, I started off doing a lot of my artwork in A4 size, which is quite small. And then I just get it on the scanner. But because I work in a lot of detail, I needed to go bigger in my scale. So the bigger your scale is, the more detail you can fit in with a pencil when you're drawing it. So I made the call to jump up to A3 size, and I just went out and just bought myself an A3 scanner because I just needed it. And yes, it was expensive, but yes, it's so worth it because I've got one at home, it's in my garage and I can scan anything that I want in. And it just, as an artist, you just need tools. This is not cheap. This is not free. You're going to need pencils. You're going to need supplies. It's going to happen. So I would say keep a receipt of everything that you can so you can claim it at the end. And we'll talk about that a little bit later when we get to the business aspects of this video. So yeah, get the 300. Now 200 DPI is okay. Now this is the thing with scanning artwork. Once it's first scanned at that DPI, you can't increase the megapixel per resolution again if it's already scanned at a low res. It'll just be like pixelated and blurred. So you're always better to scan the artwork in a high resolution. That way it's always kept in that format first, and then you can adjust the resolution later. So that's another big lesson that I learned as well. I was learning, I didn't know, I was scanning artwork and it was on 100 DPI and I didn't even know what fucking DPI was. It's the megapixel per square. So how much can fit into that? So it's more like a magnified. So I learned the hard way. So that's why I'm doing this video. So this will affect the quality of your artwork. You don't want pixelated artwork in your art, okay? It looks shithouse. It looks fucking horrible, okay? Okay, so yes, next, moving on. So I would say just getting it done is hard. Nothing's really easy. Just keep going with it. You know, we know that quality takes time, but just kind of always stay focusing on the bigger picture. And I remember at a time that this is something I think I've actually shared before. No one really ever asked me why I called the Goliath Tarot Deck the Goliath Tarot Deck. And we're at a stage in the video where you're coming along and you've done the artwork and you may not have a name for your tarot deck yet. And that's okay. Sometimes the name can change. I remember I was actually starting out. I thought I wasn't going to do a tarot deck. I was going to do an oracle deck, and it was going to be called the Wandering Oracle. And something happened. It just kind of changed. I'm a big fan of the Mariel Tarot, or the Mariel Tarot. You may know that deck. It's a beautiful deck. And it was all hand-painted by a very talented artist in America. I think she's in Phoenix. I'm not sure. And it took her 9 years all up from start. She was actually pregnant with her kids to the end of creating the deck and getting it published, and she got it, with Schiffer Publishing. The paintings were very large and they were very colorful, and they're all done on board and they're all done on smooth card, and her work styling is just absolutely beautiful. One of the things I remember reading in an interview, as well as I would listen to a lot of interviews with people like Kim Kranz, or listen to interviews of other deck creators that could help me. There's also a girl in Queensland called Sherilyn Darcy. You can look her up. She did like a lino cut tarot deck a while ago, which was all with plants and nature and botany. And she has a channel here on YouTube. I'm not sure if it's still here, but if you get a chance, you can check it. Just look her up. Some of you might even have her deck, but she kind of did videos talking about, the process. So you learn a lot of the process by being around people that have done the process. And that's why I'm contributing this video. And yeah. But yes, it took her a long time, and obviously she couldn't scan those images in. She had to take photos of them. So I would say, if you are going down the painting road as an artist, I would say always take your photos in natural light. Make sure that that light isn't too harsh. Make sure there's not too much gloss on the artwork, because it's going to show up in the image. Because the photo is going to be the image, obviously, yeah. And so putting your artwork under like Walmart energy efficient lighting, that's not going to complement your artwork. Trust me, it's going to look shithouse. So let's get on to the guidebook a little bit. So thinking about your guidebook, what is it like? I would say a lot of guidebooks these days are very minimal. So you might just get like one paragraph and that's kind of it. I would recommend to put a bit more effort in than that. If you're going to do a guidebook, make sure that you explain the artwork that you've done. And put in your personal reflections. Talk about how you got to that conclusion. Talk about what it means to you. Give me lots of juicy keywords to work with. Like, I love keywords. Keywords are great. And they're also really good for people that are new to the tarot. So maybe someone's picked up your deck and your deck spoke to them. Think about it as not making something too abstract so no one can understand what the fuck you're talking about, but also thinking about, someone that could be new and is brand new. They're a little witch, baby shaman coming into the tarot and they don't know, so they need lots of help, and keywords are really good. And sometimes we can't really be fucked going through reading all of these paragraphs when you can just get, okay, Wheel of Fortune, keywords, luck, change of circumstance, fate, opportunities, karmic law, progression, fulfillment, resolution, circle, like all that. So those keywords are really good. So I would say to keep writing alongside with the artwork. A lot of artists or deck creators create the guidebook last, and as I said in the first video, I should have started to do that more so whilst I was doing the artwork as well. So I would say that would be a good thing. And I would also say, if you are doing a tarot deck with someone and you're working with them, like you're the writer and they're the artist, or they're the artist and you're the writer, or you're creating it together, this is where I would say at this stage in the creation, you need to get something written in a contract. You need to get something signed and you need to get something done. Trust me, I know it's a pain in the ass, but you don't know where this is going to go, and you don't know where the future's a weird place. I've had friends that I thought we were a done deal and we didn't end up being friends anymore. And could you imagine if we'd created something together? That's divorce stuff. That's fucking messy. So make sure that it's not as simple as what you come with, you leave with, because when you create something, someone's going to be contributing this much and someone's giving you this much. So just writing it down, I would probably say, look, go get a lawyer if you're working with someone, because I've heard horror stories. And you just want your work to be protected. So make sure that if you're posting any of your artwork, that you do have it watermarked and you do have the copyright symbol there, because people are going to steal it. Trust me, it happens to me all the time. I see my artwork popping up on places. I see people copying everything that I do. Even on Instagram, people copying things that I do, photo shoots that I've done, styling that I've done. And it's the biggest compliment in the world. But please, credit. And if you're going to be using someone else's reference, that means that you need to credit their work as well. So back to the gathering images thing. Because my deck was animals, I had a lot of images that I got off the internet, or images that I found, like, going to the zoo. I went to the zoo 3 times. I had a really beautiful experience at the zoo. I'd go there in the morning on a hot day and have my drink and go into the greenhouse and look at the butterflies and take photos. And it was kind of like an excuse to, get out of the house. And as an artist, I'm always cramped over my bloody desk anyway. So it was nice to get out and go see and get out in fucking nature. Like if your deck's about the ocean, get down to the ocean, collect seashells, collect things that you can pull in as references. But I will say, if you are using images that, for a reference guide, I would say you're better off getting them from free websites that just give you free images that you can do anything you want with. So I think there's Pixabay or Pixless. That's a really good place to start. But don't go to like Getty Images and start copying images from because that's other people's work. That's other people's, that's their work. So you don't want to copy their work. You want to get inspired by their work. And there's nothing more infuriating and annoying than someone stealing your work. And so, you wouldn't like someone doing it to your tarot deck or your book or your artwork. So don't do it to other photographers. And if you are going to use an image that you just really love and you really want to use this in your deck, contact the creator, ask them, hey, I saw this picture, can I repost it? Or, hey, can I purchase it? And sometimes a lot of them, you can purchase a license, which will run forever in some cases. It may be a little bit on the expensive side, but trust me, it's worth it. That way, if someone comes back, you've always got a reference to say, hey, I purchased that image, I've got proof, and here's my proof. So you've always got something that's covering your ass. Because, the higher that you go in capital, the more people are going to try and deconstruct you. Trust me, there's a lot of jealousy and it gets really messy in the community. And that's why I tend now to kind of stay out of it. Now, I would say also at this stage, when you're creating a deck, you've got the contract in place, everything's coming along really well. And I would probably say at this stage now in your journey to start creating a public presence. So whether you're choosing to set up a social media, for me personally, I didn't do this until the end. I wasn't even on Instagram until my deck went live. The day that my deck came out was like the day that I started my Instagram. And if I could go back and do it again, as much as social media annoys me and frustrates me, it's really important to know that when this comes out, it's got a place to go. So there's tarot in itself is what we would call a niche market. It is something that isn't like for everyone. It's not a huge community, but there are a lot of new people coming into the wellness culture or spirituality culture. Like they're kind of coming into this thing and they're looking for esoterica. They're hungry for information. They're hungry for this kind of content or this kind of stuff. So there is always new people coming in. And I would say if you can start a social media page, just put up instant pictures saying what you're doing, or, hey, I'm working on this card today. This is my new deck. Hey guys, come and check this out, because it's going to start building up a presence for you if that's what you choose to do. If you've, been around the traps for a while, like I have, now it's been a year and a half now since I published this, I would say that share what you're comfortable with. Like for me, I'm working on my next book series and I'm illustrating a kid's book that I've written. And I'm not going to post every picture on my Instagram of the pages because I want it to be a surprise. What would be the point of just sharing everything? So share some things if you feel comfortable, but if not, that's okay. That's totally cool too. But it's going to help you in the long run if people can see what you're doing. And that is a really good thing, because community spirit is quite strong in the spiritual world or the tarot world or the book club world, the book world. Now, I was thinking there is a deck which is coming out soon. It's had a lot of time. It's been very slow. It's been kind of getting it done. There is a lot of back of work stuff happening, and particularly around COVID and delays in the world and everything. It's very complicated to make a tarot deck. Like this is not something that's easy. It's very difficult. So I don't want to play it down in this video either, the difficult level and like how difficult it is to actually make something like this, because it is. There's a lot of like volume and shape and sizes, and like it's not just like a book where it's like, you just turn the page. Like there's so many elements to it. There's the deck that's coming out is called the Bone, Stone and Earthflesh Tarot, which is done by Anna Torian and Avalon Cameron. And this deck was a deck that was created online. So it was made through It was done through a live audience, like watching the live hangouts, like so she'd be like, hey guys, what do you think about doing the devil card for for Medusa, for the devil? Or what do you think about this for the death card? Or what do you think about the tower card? So what it was doing, it was including people in the process of creating the deck so that they felt included when the deck came out. So that way it's a way of marketing it to them, including them in it, because it's a community-based effort. So they've contributed to the ideas and the direction that the deck has shaped itself. And this is a great way to go. For me, it's not my way. I'm very private. I would never ask someone what they think about my work until I finished it, or I'd never ask them because I'm very private. Like I would just like, I don't do it to appease other people so much. Not that I'm saying that they did, but it's just not my style. So if that's your style and you want to make it, and that would be cool because you would you'd feed off the energy of working with other people that are contributing to the end result in the community. So that's one avenue that you could explore if that's something that you would like to do. With Instagram, I actually was quite lucky. I came in on Instagram around the time that Facebook took over Instagram. And back then, I had way more exposure. Something happened about 4 or 5 months into having my Instagram account where the algorithm really changed. And I only recently learnt this, but when you post something on your Instagram only shows it on average to 4% of your followers in the algorithm. And that's including tags and everything. So, because what it is, it's a social capital thing. So the more followers that you have, the more that they're going to promote that, the more coverage it has of people. So the more airtime that they project that into other feeds and tags. The algorithm of Instagram is a very complicated thing. And it is something that you'll have to deal with if you're coming into the tarot world. Instagram is a great place to start because it's visual, it's art, it's easy. You can put web links in there, bio in there, comments, and it's one of those things where you can really get your foot in the door. But it's also like it can stress you the fuck out too, and you've always got to keep updated and keep engaging with consumers and people. And so I have a sip of the tea. Hope this video, I'm trying to condense as much as I can. We could probably make a 3-part series out of this, but anyway, I'm keeping it to 2 parts and that'll be the end of it. So so financing a deck can be tricky as well. So for me, I saved and saved and saved and saved, and it cost a fuckload of money to get the first batch done. I'm not gonna lie to you about this. I'm in Australia, and the conversion rates, the currency rates, it's a very complicated thing. I would say, in general, if you're going to sell your deck, sell it in a USD currency, because that's the best currency to, that's where it's mostly going to be sold in that mode. And if you need a Kickstarter, get started on the Kickstarter. Just bear in mind that if you commit to Kickstarter, that you will need to adhere to the timelines of the project that you've set, and that can also get stressful as well. So, keeping everyone updated and what's happening, because they're going to feel invested in it, because they've invested money in your artwork, because they care about you and they want you, to do your deck. I would also start to factor into things like the shaping of the tarot cards, the shaping of the deck, the size of the cards. So, for example, we'll talk about this now. We may as well get it out of the way. You are going to learn about something called a bleed line. This is a headache for a lot of people out there, but you may as well know now. So when I did my artwork actually was a little bit more square than this rectangle shape that you see here in the 4 of cards. And so what you have to do is you need to keep all of your artwork in the same ratio of size, because what can happen is, if it's not kept obviously at the same ratio of height, and width, you're going to get your artwork cropped, and that's going to suck. Now, when it comes to the printing element of things, it's time to think about the borders. Some of your borders might be white, black, gold, whatever, thinking maybe you don't want borders in your deck. Borderless decks are cool too. Whatever it is that you're going to do, you're going to be probably doing that in Photoshop or InDesign, and it will need to be submitted in a PDF format, which is a compressed format where the artwork is still in a very high resolution. And for me, I remember the first deck I think it was 126 by 88 which is quite a big deck. The first version that I did of my own deck was quite big. And I wanted to do that because I have a lot of detail in my work, and if I shrunk it right down, you'd lose a lot of the detail. So I had to make that call. But when I did version 2, I was able to amend that because my deck being 95 cards was so thick, and then I was able to make it smaller so it's easier for people to shuffle, so it's more ergonomically correct for people to actually use. Because what's the point of making a deck if people can't it's still very fumbly. So we have a bleed line, we have a die line, we have a safe line, and we have a marker line. And you can jump on Google and jump into the depth of it, but I'm not going to go too much into it. Basically, a bleed line is the edging of the card that will be cut. So when your deck is printed, it's going to be printed in squares on a big sheet, and then they're just going to be cut. And then at the end, they get corner edged to take off the sharpness of the corner. I would highly recommend getting the corners done because that can be sharp and that could poke someone, particularly if the card stock is more than 250 GSM. So I would also start to think about what type of cardstock would you like. I would highly recommend don't go lower than 250 GSM, simply because it can get quite flimsy. Go for a matte finish. That's my personal preference. I did the gold edging, which doesn't really work long term. And I would say, go with the matte edging and probably go for about 300 GSM. It's, and if you can get the laminate finish where it's a creamy, streamy, smooth finish, and that way it's easy to shuffle. But if it's really up to you and it's your project, but yes, this will cost more. And yes, you've got to factor into a lot of stuff like conversion rates. You've got to take into account taxes, import taxes. So I think the easiest thing that I've seen a lot of people do is they basically just took the Wild Unknown Tarot to the printers and said, I want that, do that. Because after that deck came out, everyone's deck was like exactly the same box and sizing as the Wild Unknown. Sorry, did I say Goliath? Wild Unknown, sorry. A lot of actual deck creators just copied that deck from start to finish, which was quite worrying to see. I did notice that a lot. But anyway, so yes, you need a bleed line. You need to make sure that the artwork has space around it. Otherwise, it will be cut. And if you can, try not to stretch the image into fitting into the square. So the best thing to do, I would say, is get a template of another card that size that you would like, and then set the margins of that template in InDesign or Photoshop. So when you put the artwork in there, it's all going to be the same size. That way you're not going to have to, cry and be a mess of cutting it all off. It will look this, you don't want your art. You've worked too hard to get your artwork all cut off. Okay, we're getting there. I hope you're all sticking with me because this is getting to be quite a long video. So if you can, you might have some help, get some designers around, start talking about ideas about where you want this to go and what you want to do with it, because this is your dream. Now, I would say, I know this to be true, 99% of all decks are made in China. They are, and they're all printed in a province called Shenzhen, which is a province which is outside of Hong Kong, and it's very industrial, and there's lots of printers there. And I know this because I have been there. I've gone there. I have walked through a warehouse. I've seen the production line, the processes. I've gone from start to finish, from right to the shrink wrap, from the cards getting cut to the edging to the mat, like everything. I've seen it. So I know firsthand how this all works because I've been there. And while I was there, I saw many decks in the cabinets there. I won't name names, but most of the decks that are out on the market to this day were all made at this particular factory, which I'm talking about. And that's totally cool. We have to go with what we can afford, guys. At the end of the day, hey, this is capitalism. We're trying to put our artwork out there to support ourselves, to make more art. And we need sales. Like, at the end of the day, this isn't free. It's going to be expensive. And it's think of creating a tarot deck as an investment. It's something that's going to bring you something back. Now, you can find a manufacturer on an app I used an app on my phone that was called Alibaba. So Alibaba is an app you can download. This will allow you to create a portal where you can put out what you're looking for, and then people kind of basically bid and try and find you to see if you're the right fit for them. So whether you're literally you could make anything on there. A lot of people start their productions of like cups, or it could be boxes, it could be parts for cars, it could be books. There's literally everything's made. Like you'll find it if you've got an idea of something that you're looking for to get mass produced, this app will be the app for you, because it's going to link you. And it's not just mostly in China, it does work in like other countries. It's got Singapore and Turkey and Istanbul and Indonesia. There's lots of different places that you can go. And we don't have to disclose where decks are made, but most decks are made over there, because obviously the cost here in the country that you may be in is going to be way higher. So the volume that is lower of your deck will mean the amount that you'll have to pay. So if it's just one deck and you've made a tarot deck just for yourself, you're probably looking at about $40 to $60. And I think it's called a website called playingcards.com, where you go through as a template and you submit that in, and then they create the tarot deck and just send it to you. And it's right down to the box template. Like everything's a template, and that's really easy. And it's a really good thing to do, because it can give you a good guide when your deck is created to see how it all kind of flows and how it all kind of fits and what it feels like in your hands and what all the cards kind of look like side by side, so you can get an idea about what it all looks like cohesively together. So yes, Alibaba is a good place to go to get started. And this is a slow process. Yet again, this took me weeks of sitting there on the phone, trying to find a printer, trying to find someone, exchanging ping-ponging messages. And eventually what will happen is you'll find someone that will be a representative that may speak English or speak the language that you speak. I'm presuming it's English. And they'll be like, you'll find one that will be the right fit for you. Now, working with a company overseas can be tricky. There is going to be a time delay so that will be a factor that we'll have to take into account. And also understand that these printing companies, they want big jobs. They don't want to do little jobs. A lot of these companies are printing thousands of different products like every year. And they're just running through. So what they'll do, generally once you find a printing company, they will need 30% deposit to book the print in, and then that could take weeks to months for the date that they've scheduled to make that happen for you. Also ask them about what templates they have, because some of these printing companies that do, particularly tarot decks, they already have a template which you can just use. If you don't go with a template that they have, they're going to have to create something called a mold. And that mold is going to be expensive, okay? I'm not going to lie to you. It can vary in price, but I think it's about $400 or $500. So mold costs are not cheap. So if you've got if you can find one that fits, that they can give you, and they'll give you a template which is in a PNG form, which they'll send to you via email. And a lot of countries that manufacturing companies, particularly China, they don't actually have like Skype call and stuff. It's all kind of banned because it's a communist country. So there is an app that you'll also have to download, which is called WeChat. So try Alibaba and WeChat, and make sure that the people that you're talking to are legit, because the last thing you want to do is just waste time with someone who's trying to scam you. And make sure that if you make any payments that you're putting it through PayPal. That way it's more protected if something goes wrong. Okay, so yeah, you've got to kind of build up a bit of a relationship with the printing company, because in time you may want to order more, and we want to have a good relationship with people that we're working with and people that we can rely on and trust. So that being said, that would be a good place to start. And it's not the only place. Obviously, there's lots of places, but I'm only sharing what I know firsthand, and being very real and being I'm not holding anything back really in this video. So you've got to do your homework, you've got to investigate. It's going to take a long time. It's not easy. And if you know someone that knows someone, then that's even better for you. Lucky you. For me, it wasn't the case. It was a lot of hard work, a lot of tears and pain, and it was a pain in the ass. And a lot of the consumers, they would never know this. They don't care about what you've gone through. They just want the product. They're very entitled. Okay, I've learned that as well. Okay, so I would say now let's move into working out whether you want to self-publish or go down the traditional road. And I'm going to be really transparent about this as well. you need to be really careful. Okay, you need to be very, very careful with what you're doing here, because this can go sideways really quickly. Okay, so with the tarot decks out there, there's the big ones. There's Hay House, there's Schiffer, there's tongue-tied Llewellyn, there's Rockpool Publishing. There's so many out there. Okay. Now, there are lots of videos out there already that will tell you, you know, how the process works, and you'll be given a contract, which you'll have to look at if you've made contact with them and they show interest in you. But it really the contract will be determined by what capital you bring them. And for me personally, I've gone down the self-publishing route, and that's my traditional thing. I'm an indie deck creator, and I will get on to explaining why, but I'm not going to, you know, really go into a massive story about this, because, you know, that could be another video for another day. This video is already getting quite long. So I would say pros and cons, like everything has pros and cons. So basically in today's world, at this stage right now, for me personally, I was happy to just create it because I wanted to learn the process about making a product. I wanted to learn about marketing. I wanted to learn about how it all works and the shipping and, you know, everything that's involved in creating something. And I have the skill set to be able to do that. If all of this is confusing the hell out of you and this is all just overwhelming and you don't know that you want to go down the self-publishing route, then that is totally cool. You can find a publisher that may represent you. There's a lot of publishers out there that will have more lenient, you know, contracts. You do this, you go here, you do a signing, or we'll give you this many and see how we go. It's really like there's a lot more flexibility than there ever was before. I know that to be true because I've explored this option as well. So, but I will say, now this is where it's going to get very hardcore. As an artist personally in my life, I'm very skeptical of people wanting to represent me. I've had a lot of bad experiences, and I used to just do paintings and do my art, and people, I used to be with galleries, and I just got fucked over every single time. The commission rate in Australia in a gallery is 50%, half. So I would work months, weeks, ages doing a beautiful massive ass painting, and I take it into the gallery and they've done nothing. They haven't created it, they didn't make it, and they yeah, okay, we'll take it on, yep, we'll put it in. And then you hand over your work to a perfect stranger that has done nothing, and in most cases they don't really care about you unless you're making them money. It's all about, you know, it's capitalism. And at the end of the day, and basically they could put your painting right down the end where the toilet is, where no one sees your work and it doesn't get shown, or they could put it right in the front of the shop window where everyone sees it and you have more exposure. So you straight away you lose control about how much visibility it gets. And, you know, so that's a really, like, I'm using this analogy as a reference to showing you how much marketing that they're going to give you, because they're going to go with the ones that are going to they're going to move quickly. They're looking for volume. They're looking for stock. This is a business. So I might sell a painting. Someone comes in, for example, and bought the painting, and they would get paid. The gallery would get, you know, the money. They'd take their 50%, and then I'd get my 50%, and then I'd get taxed on my 50%, about 32% on that. So you can see that's a very, very hard way to live. And it was a really depressing experience because I felt basically raped. Like, it was just terrible. And then they'll lock you in a contract, so you can't be with other publishers, or you can't be with other galleries or whatever. So a lot of them are very locked in. Like, they want you, they're locking you in. And then they may back to the publishing book side of things, they may lock you in a place where they need another deck from you in a year. And then you've got this kind of looming cloud over you where you've got to hurry and get this done. And, you know, it's a stress that I just don't need. And I just felt so misrepresented as an artist. I decided to start creating my own way of marketing. So I get on the Instagram, or you get on social media, or you create your own website. And what happens is you begin to just knock out the middleman. He's gone. I'm in control. But then you have to take on the weight of the cost, the shipping cost, the creation, and then you put that money back into the business to help it grow. Because ultimately, if you're going to be making a book or making a tarot deck, you are creating a product that is making money, which means that you're going to have to pay tax because it is going to be a paper trail there. And so I hope this isn't too over the top, but yeah, that's the story that I'm explaining to you. So I just got fucked over so many times. I just was like, no, never being represented by anyone ever again. And I'm very skeptical about people wanting to help me. I'm like, how many times have people told me they're going to build me up and they're going to promote me and help me? And they've done fuck all. I could do it all myself. And in some cases, I've been able to do that. Like I don't need representation. I'm more interested in volume than I guess what I'm trying to say is when it comes to traditional or not, it's going to be more like, how do I put it? They may be able to get your deck or your book into bookshops, but that is also a slippery slope as well, because say, for example, you get your book into Target or Walmart or Barnes & Noble. First of all, you're going to have to get past the shop buyers that buy products for that shop. So your shop has to meet what is called like a POD, a point of difference, or a niche that already complies to what their store is. So they're not going to, a lot of bookshops are not going to carry tarot decks. Like, I'm going to be honest with you, like a lot of shops in Australia, they don't have tarot decks really. They've kind of trickled into the mainstream, but they're not mainstream enough. And if a product is on a shelf and it's not moving and it's not selling, then it's taking up space for a product that could sell it. So they're always looking for things that are going to keep moving, and they need to know that it's going to move. So what can happen is you could get a deck or a book put into a shop, and it's like the publisher is vouching that it will sell, but if it doesn't sell, then you have got to get the book off the shelf and it's all got to go. And then you're just like, fuck, I've lost all this money, because they may have put up the production costs, which will put you in debt to them. So you kind of become an employee of them. It's complicated. Please know that when you get into business, you have to really think hard. And if you're going down the self-marketing, self-publishing route, that's awesome. That's great. But you're also going to have to bear in mind that you're going to have to juggle marketing in between creating the next thing that you're working on at the same time. So trying to get it out there and trying to meet people, if you can get a helper or an IT person or a staff member to help manage the website, whether you're shipping things out, at this time, at the moment, it's very difficult shipping things internationally. There's a lot of delays there. It's a lot to think of. And so you've got to hustle, you've got to keep working, you've got to interact with people, you've got to take what options you can get to try and get your work out there. And so, I guess there's a lot of horror stories out there. You can go on the internet and find a lot of horror stories. I'm not pro publisher or not against publishing. It really depends what's right for you. If that's what you want to do and you want to be with a publisher, then that's great. But there is, in my case, there is a stigma where decks are being put out there. Like, it's like the whole thing, or anyone can, like, not even a deck, but a book, for example. It's like that whole saying, like, anyone can self-publish. That's true. And I won't lie, there are a lot of books and decks and creations out there that are not polished. They're not really, there's a lot of unpolished novels out there, and that kind of makes it harder for the good ones. But I mean, I am very happy with the fact that when my deck came out and I self-published and I went down this route and I learned how to do everything and got the box template and all of the stuff that was involved in creating something like this, I was very committed to it, and I knew that I'd get a good return out of it if I was honest and truthful, and I was able to translate my truth into my art. And I'm confident enough, and you'll build up your confidence as an artist and a creator the more that you create. So the best advice I can say is just fucking create, start creating. But yeah, so there is it's tricky because in some cases, look, I mean, I'm happy because I got my deck hit number 1 on Amazon at one stage in my country, and that was great for me. I was very happy with that, and to know that I did this from my bedroom and it was a first go, I'm very proud of that. The second deck version that I made, I was able to correct and fix a lot of things because I listened to everyone's feedback and I took it on board and I redid it again, and I'm always improving. And so I know that the next project that I work on for my kids book series, I can take all the experience of this and I'm going to apply that in my next thing. So the volume of royalties will go only solely directly to you if you self-publish, but your product has to move enough to be able to create a passive income or a full-time income out of that. And that's that step where it's like, you know, it's very difficult when you've got kids or you're juggling a job to create a book or put something out there when you're working really hard taking care of your family and stuff. And sometimes, you know, it's just the energy just isn't there, and you have to really go where your energy is. And in some cases, maybe it's not the right time for you and you come back later and do it again. I'm just thinking what else I can say. I think I've said a lot here. Yeah, there's a lot of pros and cons to it. And I think the best way to go is just kind of finding your way. Also, I would say I've learnt the hard way for editing. Don't just get a friend to do your editing. Get someone that is reliable, that's very thorough. And, you know, probably not best to go on like an Airtasker app and just get a random person. It's best to find someone, invest the money in someone who can really help you so that you're able to, you know, make sure that the spelling's right, the grammar's right, everything's right. And that's that makes it a stronger product, and that makes it more good. And try and find people, like it's hard to find proofreaders. Like I found a proofreader that was terrible at one stage. I learned the hard way, people, freelancers, they fuck you around, you know, and so you've got to figure out which is right for you. And I have a dream and one day I'm going to walk into a shop in the world and my book's going to be in the shop. I'm going to pick up, it's a very satisfying and it's an incredibly rewarding experience to pick up something that you've made in a shop and be like, I made this, oh my God, I did this, I put it out, and be really happy with what you've created. There is nothing better than that, and that's the feeling that I'm going for. So the devil is in the detail, okay? Do the work, do the detail. And that is probably the best advice I can give you. There's always a zillion things that I think of later, but I think that's a pretty good video. We've taken it, what are we at? Over an hour now. So God, hope you enjoyed part 2 of how to make a tarot card deck. I wish you all the absolute best. If you're doing this, keep going, keep working. It's gonna work out. Have faith in yourself. It all takes time. Be patient and know that when you get there in the end, you'll be very happy and proud of the work that you've done, just like me, and know that, you know, you can do this. So I'll let you go. Oh, before I let you go as well, if you can, try and work, like connect with influencers or people that are in the community that might have followings that could do videos for you, or ways that you can try and get your work out there if you are going down the self-publishing route, because it's good when, you know, that helps you get out there. So if no one's going to toot your horn, you're going to have to toot your own horn. That's how it works. Like if you don't, hey guys, check this out, how the fuck's anyone going to know about you? So marketing is everything. Get your work out there by any way that you can. There'll be a lot of influencers out there that will take advantage of you. A lot of the, I'm not going to lie to you, a lot of the interactions I've had with the tarot community and the spiritual community have been horrible. People have just said, hey, I want to do a review of your deck, and you send them a deck and they never do it. Or they ask, you know, you send them a copy of the deck and then they give it away in a competition to try and make more followers for themselves. This happens all the time. Be prepared for people to not like your work, and that's okay too. Just keep standing in your own line and in your own lane, and just keep working hard, and know that if you keep putting the best foot forward, it'll all be worth it in the end. Thank you so much for holding space for me, and I will see you in the next video. And that is a wrap for the part 2 of how to make a tarot card deck. See ya.